there seems to be no SQLite stuff built in to Go, which is sad. And which I think means that there's actually no direct database access stuff. Even though there's a database package, it's a generic interface. And we can see here where there's a list of drivers. Well, I feel like every time I click one of these things now, it's going to risk taking down the stream, which sucks. So there's drivers all over the place. A ton of, I don't know what the star means. Drivers marked with star are both included in and pass the compatibility test suite. Oh, okay. So Matt ends driver seems to be the preferred interface for SQLite, but it doesn't really matter. If we're operating from a standard library point of view where that's not available, then that's not going to help. So let's see what ChatGPT knows. What data storage options are available using just the Go standard library? There are no built-in DB drivers. Am I limited files? Well, they're recommending, even though I told it to stick with just standard library stuff, recommending tools that are outside of that. We could use files. That's interesting. So you could use JSON, you could build up a JSON kind of schema database thing. That way, serve them directly. Load some files with CSV, that makes sense. Heaven forbid, use some XML files if you must. Or just use some straight up text files. But it sounds like we don't get any access to a database here, which is too bad. Really a missed opportunity here. I'll pull this over here. You can actually see that stuff. Okay, so that I think answers our question, or one of my questions here, of what's available data-wise, and the answer seems to be JSON files, XML files, or let's put this in the repository. And I think in the future, by the way, I have a way to quickly bring my network back up. If this seems to happen going again, I noticed that when it got stuck, I could just shut down the network and restart it, which is why it leads me to think it's like a software problem with the Mac and not necessarily like a true hardware problem. Which is what makes this so upsetting when stuff craps out like that. But who knows? Who knows? Networks are hard. So we want to, well, actually first, let's commit this stuff, and we'll say we've covered routing topics. Push that up. So kind of to do, actually, we want to come back to this next week because I have a the presentation I'm trying to do for this is actually at the end of the month. So I'd like to explore this a little bit more deeply over the course of this month and really build out a bunch of features here. So things to explore. We want to do JSON APIs. How do we do that easily? JSON, specifically JSON API serialization. And then templates, HTML templates. And then within that, like nesting, partials, or you might consider that includes, stuff like that. All right. And then the data answer seems to be indent. Oh my word. Come on. Go. So there's no native DB option. Although part of me is tempted to be like Bolt DB sounds pretty cool. What's up with Bolt DB? And then if we allowed one driver, what's it like to work with SQLite? Okay. What other questions would I want to answer? So I think there's the ability to do middleware. In fact, we may have already even seen it, kind of indirectly. So the app has, that splits really poorly. The app, we used strip prefix. So it took a mux, essentially a handler, we speak in interface terms, and it returned a handler. In other words, this strip prefix is it is an example of a middleware where it's taking a handler and returning a handler. So, but it might not be a perfect example of, well, I guess it is. It's because it's calling, the reason it's able to do that is because it has to, the way that you can keep the chain going is by calling serve HTTP, which is the handler interface. So that's pretty cool. Also really cool. I love when you can just jump to a definition like that, and like this is standard library code, and we're just like looking at it. That's awesome. See exactly what it does. A little odd in its construction, to be honest, but or it's odd and gosh, they really love these short variables. I hate that. R2? Come on. Okay, so but it'd be fun to like make our own middleware, because that would be a common thing that you'd put in a lot of software, would be to have a middleware. Other stuff that would be useful. What I don't know is like, where's context? You know, a lot of, feel like I see a lot of functions that have context, but we're only dealing with response writers and requests. So where did that go? If we were to go back here, standard library, and return to the net HTTP package. Context. Does it show up anywhere? Oh, it's part of the request. Interesting. So in Go stuff, context is it's really a way to cancel things appropriately, to deal with timeouts and a bunch of things like that. But sometimes data gets attached to it in interesting ways. So if there's a mechanism to attach data to something, like thinking about, if we wanted to do kind of auth of some kind, we wanted to have session auth, let's say, and you wanted to be able to look up who is the user for this web app in a certain context to authenticate them. In order to do that, you'd need to be able to grab that data from something to say, yep, we have, maybe we have an auth middleware, and in that auth middleware, it does your standard kind of password hashing stuff, checks in your data store to see if that hash matches, and then authenticates somebody, and then we'll do a challenge if it doesn't. But if you did pass that authentication challenge, future routes that need to check against, is this particular user allowed to look at this and make authorization decisions, they would need to be able to get that information from somewhere to presumably look up in some other database table of, hey, is this ID allowed? So if we were trying to simulate that, we would need to attach that attribute somewhere. Because I'm trying to translate in my head from Django. Django, if you follow the authentication scheme, will attach a request user. And we aren't going to be able to get that, but if we did our context and we're able to get some kind of value out of that, then that would be equivalent to doing that, which is something you would need in building standard apps. So there's something to explore there. What are other things that I would consider? I would be interested in how are static files served, returning binaries directly. I don't think you'd want to do a writer. There's got to be some kind of mechanism to skip that nonsense, I would hope. Maybe not. So we've got CGI, don't care. Cookies. Okay. You can manage a cookie jar of what cookies are on the request, I guess. Oh, that's very short. There's a cookie jar interface. Huh. Cookies? Okay. Cool. And I don't want to get into fast CGI. I don't care. Utilities for HTTP testing. Oh, that sounds cool. HTTP util. What is this stuff? Maybe this is where, well, I don't know what's in here. Dump requests and responses. That seems useful for debugging. Proxy stuff. Seems pretty low level. Probably not what we'd want to reach for right out of the box, but you never know. There's probably surprises in there. So as we explore different topics, these are the kind of things we'd want to do. I am quite interested in what they mean by RPC here. Because this is like a native Go RPC. Like oh, what do they call it in Java? Java remote interface. I'm afraid to search now. I'm afraid it's gonna like drop my connection. JMI, Java Machine Interface, something like that. So maybe there's something built in to Go if you're wanted to do straight up like RPC stuff. Wild. Go RPC. Huh. Guess that could be powerful if you didn't want to bring in gRPC. You like didn't really care about, didn't have to have super high performance or like strict compatibility. Wonder about what it serializes though. Maybe it's going to JSON or something. Okay, cool. There's the JSON RPC 1.0 spec. That's kind of lame. Already not a very complicated spec, so I don't know why you'd want to use that instead of a 2.0. You're trying to stick to the library, I guess. Oh, I know what we could do. So sometimes you want like you want to put like a web interface on like some other API you want to call. Maybe you're setting up some kind of proxy. So a route that calls or let's see, handler func. Go on again.